Hey there, my fellow designers and creatives. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. This is the ultimate guide to variables and design tokens. This is a very highly requested tutorial, something that a lot of you have been asking for a very long time. So here it is. Now, this video is actually a part of a very big design system course called the Super Ultimate Guide to UI Design. Make sure to check out learnproduct.design if you want to get access to the course. With that being said, let's get started. Now, what I have is a simple presentation. I felt this was the best way to make this and explain this. Of course, I'm going to show you Figma as well, and I'm going to take you through a couple of things in Figma as well. But I thought it's important to explain the concept a little bit before we dive into the features and variables and all of those things. Now, I highly recommend you check out this video, which I've already put, and it's, as you can see, I've made this video quite some time ago, and there's been a lot of updates. I've learned a lot of new things, and Figma has done a lot of stuff in the past since the time I uploaded this video. This is a very important video that I highly recommend you to watch. So if you haven't watched this video, pause the video, go back, check it out. I'll leave a link down below in the description for you to have a look at it. That's going to explain the complete basics, right? And this video is going to be a step further, and we're going to consider Figma variables and sort of understand what's actually happening in this entire design token ecosystem, right? So make sure to watch that video. And the other thing here is that we're going to specifically focus on color tokens because the rest are pretty easy. Typography, spacing, corner radius, all of those are pretty easy, to be very honest. In this video, we're going to focus only on colors because that is the most complicated thing that people get confused about. All right. Now, we have Figma variables. Now, Figma variables is a feature of Figma, right? That's the most important thing to understand. Figma variables is a feature. Now, what does this feature allow you to do? Now, this feature allows you to create design tokens and allows you to do prototyping. Now, prototyping is not something I'm going to be covering in this video or in this course. Prototyping is a totally different thing altogether, but you can use Figma variables. But the most important thing to understand is that Figma variables is a feature which allows you to create design tokens, but also allows you to create really good functional prototypes, right? And of course, like in this video, we're going to focus only on design tokens and specifically color tokens. All right. Now, the question is, why do we need design tokens? Now, if you've already seen the video on the basics of design tokens, you probably have an idea, but I'm going to try to make this a little bit more informative. Now, the first thing is that the reason we need a design system, and when we make a design system, we have to use design tokens, is that designers can focus on solving problems rather than figuring out UI level things. Which component should they use? What should be the color? What should be the font size? What should be the right token, right? Designers should not have to spend time thinking about all of those things. Designers should have to spend time on solving problems and coming up with experiences. So the design system has to be built in such a way that designers can focus on solving problems rather than figuring out all these UI issues, right? The second thing is this will definitely help engineers build faster. And engineers are not going to be coding every single thing from scratch every time. The way we make a design system, engineers are also going to make a design system in their code base, and it has to be quite similar to what designers make, right? And that enables designers to build faster, not only build faster, make changes faster. If we make changes to the design system in Figma, it should be very easy to make that change really fast in the code base as well. And the main point of doing this is to ensure that there is design and code parity. Do you want your actual app or website to look exactly like how you've designed it? Then you need to have a really good design system, and engineers should be able to understand it very well, right? And the whole point is that it reduces miscommunication. The reason builds don't end up looking really good or do not look very similar to design is because of two reasons. Either engineers are really bad at what they do, they don't know how to do it, or they misunderstood, or they don't understand, or they got confused. It also gives you the flexibility to easily make changes in the future. In case you want to make some changes, you want to do a redesign, you want to remove something, you want to add something. Having good design tokens helps you ensure that things don't break and it is easy to make changes to the design system. It's all about maintaining and it's not about creating. Creating is easy, maintaining is hard. And of course, it ensures design consistency, be it on your app, be it on your website, be it whether it's a 2-designer team, be it whether it's a 50-designer team. There will be good consistency if you have design tokens and a really rock solid design system in place. Now, here we have a regular search input field, right? We've seen this pretty much in all apps. But behind the search input field is a lot of properties. We've got icon color, we've got text color, we've got text opacity, background color, border color, corner radius, padding. There can be a lot more. We can have shadows, we can have gradients. We've got a lot of things, right? Of course, we have font size, font weight, line height. We have a lot of those things. All of these are individual properties. And having a really good database of all these properties in a really nice structured way is really helpful. And again, like I said, in this video, we're going to focus completely on colors. Now, the biggest question is after Figma's announcement, everybody is asking, should you use color styles or should you use color variables? What is the right answer? What is the difference between color style and color variables? And I have a very beautiful example to explain what is the difference between color styles and color variables. I'm going to show that towards the end of the video, but this is a very big question. Now, my answer to this is variables is equal to styles plus use case, right? Now, of course, we're focusing only on design tokens and not really prototyping features. So Figma variables is basically the styles that we currently have today plus a use case that is assigned to it. This is some sort of a simple formula to put everything into a nutshell. Now, my rule is that I'm going to tell you to start using variables instead of styles. Now, we want to stop using styles and start using variables, right? Which means before we were using color styles and we are going to stop using that and we're going to focus on using color variables. Now, the reason there's an asterisk is because right now we can't create tokens for everything. Right? We can't make gradients. We can't create opacity tokens. We can't do a lot of these things yet. They will be done towards the end of the year. Figma has said that they're going to do it. But for now, we can't do all of that, right? But once those also come in, we can go ahead and incorporate gradients and opacity and all of those things also into our color tokens, right? But for now, we can't use gradients, right? So if you are designing an app, if you are making a design system, you're going to use color styles for gradients and you're going to use variables for your normal regular colors, right? So you want to start using them right away. There's no need to wait. You can just convert your color styles into your color variables and you can start using them in your designs. There's nothing to wait. We don't have to wait for Figma. We don't have to wait for anything else. You can start using them right away. And of course, make sure to check out the super ultimate guide to design systems. You can check out learnproduct.design for more information. I'm going to teach you everything. So I highly recommend you check that out. Now, let's get into an actual set of examples. Now, here is a screen from Airbnb, right? And at the bottom, we have two buttons. We've got a skip button and we've got a big fat primary button, which says next. All right. So now we have, I've created some sort of a diagram over here to explain things. And we're basically going to pick the black color that we see over here, right? Now, the black color has a hex code of 222222, right? That's basically this color. It's used for the text, it's used for this border, and it's also used for the background of this button, right? That's the hex code. Now, when we're setting up tokens, there are 4 levels, and I'm going to explain what of these are. Now, the second level is to give it a nickname, right? And we're going to call this hex code something, right? We need to give it some sort of a name. This is the raw value, and gray 1000 is some sort of a nickname to it. Now, we can go another level, which is basically we give it a use case, right? We're going to say we are going to use gray 1000 as our primary surface, right? So our primary surface is basically 222222, which is also our gray 100. And that's basically what we're using over here. Now, the interesting thing is that this gray 100 can also be used for the text as well, right? This text link that we have, this text over here, this text in the pill, this text in the title, this is also using the same color, which means this gray 1000 is being used for multiple purposes, right? And because it's being used for the skip button as well, I'm going to go ahead and give it a use case called as primary content, or in this case, content primary, right? And that's why you can see this arrow mark. Gray 1000 is being used for surface primary, and it is also being used as content primary. Now, this is the third level. Now, we can also take it another level further, where we assign it to a component. What you see over here is at the component level. So we are saying surface primary, not just surface primary, button surface primary. All right. Now, this content primary has another component level, which is called link content primary. Basically, the skip button that we see over here, this is a text link, right? This is a component, right? That is the link over here. So as you can see, we have 4 levels, and each of these levels, each of these names are called as design tokens or color tokens. A token is basically a name, right? And at each level, the token is doing something. At this level, the token is defining the name for the color, right? What is the name of this color, right? This color is gray 1000. At the third level, it is defining the use case. And at the fourth level, it is defining the component and the use case together, right? These are the 4 levels of design tokens. Now, in reality, we as designers can sometimes just live with the 3 levels. We don't need to go to the component level. There are a lot of companies out there where designers just focus on 3 levels, and sometimes the companies, they set up the 4th level at a component level, right? But 90% of the times, designers just set up with the 3 levels. So when we as designers are creating design systems, we don't actually have to define the component level tokens. We can just define the 3rd level token and be done with it, right? That's an option that we have, and I've seen a lot of designers and a lot of companies do this. Now, we're going to get into the differences between variables and styles. Now, with Figma variables, you can achieve all of these things. You can pick a color, provide that with a name, define the use case, and also define the component, right? You can achieve this connection with variables. But if you're using color styles before, right, we can only do a one-to-one mapping. You can either take the color and create a color style, and you can choose to call it surface primary, or you can create a color, you can take this color and create a color style and call it gray 1000. Because in color styles, you can only do a one-to-one mapping. You can't do more than that. But in Figma variables, you can, and obviously I'm going to show you. Now here is an example where I've set up this system with color styles. All right. And basically I'm following the second approach where I've taken a color and I defined the use case directly, right? We are setting up some system of design tokens, right? But I'll tell you the problem with using styles and the disadvantages with a really good example, all right? So here, as you can see, I have 3 colors. I have surface primary, I have content primary, and I have border primary. And all of them have the exact same color, okay? I have all these blue colors as well, all right? Now let's assume that one day the team decides that all the buttons that had this surface primary should no longer have this black color, right? We should start using this blue 800 from now on, right? Which means we now have to come and change this over here. Now with styles, it is easy to do, right? And I'm going to exit the presentation mode and go into Figma and show you. So here I am in the editor mode, and I'm going to bring back the sidebars, all right? Now if you see over here, if I click on this, you can see I've assigned a color called as surface primary. I've assigned one called as content primary, and I've assigned one called as border primary, which means I have gone ahead and created 3 color styles for the exact same color, right? Now this is just one case. We're going to have secondary, we're going to have elevated, we're going to have disabled, we're going to have static, we're going to have secondary, we're going to have tertiary, we're going to have a lot more. We're going to have error, right? So that way, the entire side panel of local styles becomes a big mess. That is the first disadvantage with using color styles. It becomes so hard to maintain, and the chances of making mistakes are extremely high, right? So now, given that our use case is that we are now going to change surface primary to be this color, how would we do it? Now in this case, since we already defined surface primary over here to be black, I can come over here and I can pick this color. So I can come over here and I can pick this color and I can close this and we're done, right? Pretty simple, right? Pretty simple and straightforward. It works. These two stayed as it is, even though it was the same color before, but because we had defined a use case, this didn't change. Now let's say that we want to change the hex code of this color, right? We want to change the hex code of blue 800. We want to make it a little bit darker because it's not meeting the accessibility guidelines, for example. Let's take a small use case. So obviously I want to make this darker. Now what will I do? I'm going to come over here, all right? And I can click on the color picker, right? Now, of course, I can add a hex value, all right? Or I can increase this, right? So let's say I come over here and I increase this a bit, right? I make it darker. Now, of course, it changes over here. But because it was a one-to-one mapping, this color isn't getting changed. This color is actually blue 800. Now, the thing is that I want this blue 800 itself to be different. Now, what that means is I will have to come over here, all right? Copy this color style, come over here to blue 800 and find that here in the blue 800 and change that over here, right? And now that gets changed. And as you can see, it's a one-to-one mapping, which means I have to change here and I have to change here as well. I need to change it here in the original raw color styles and have to come and change it in the use case. Now this seems like a small task, but imagine if you want to make a lot of changes and much bigger and complex changes. It's going to be a big mess to manage all of this, right? Because like I said, color styles have a one-to-one mapping. Now I'm going to do the same thing with variables, all right? And we're going to check that out. So here I have variables, and what I've done here, I've assigned a variable. I've not assigned a color style. I've assigned a variable. So this is surface primary, this is content primary, and this is border primary, right? And here we had the original blue 800. Now let's do both the things, right? The first thing that we want to do is first change all surface primary to have this blue color. Let's assume that's what we want to do. So now I can click on local variables because I'm no more touching color styles. I'm going to do everything in local variables. And here I have all the colors set up over here. Here I had color styles. Here I had variables, right? Now in essence, when you start using variables, you don't need to set these color styles. You don't need color styles at all. Everything is going to be in variables, right? But here I have both because I have to show you both examples, right? So I've set all this up, and here I have given names, right? Now gray 900 was 222222, and I can also come over here and show you in the tokens, I've defined surface primary and I've mapped that to gray 900. In tokens, this surface primary was a hex code. But here in variables, surface primary is linked with the hex code through the nickname, right? Here we haven't actually added the value of hex code. Here we have added a token. So we are connecting the variables together. So now if I want to change surface primary to blue 800, all I have to do is come over here and change this to blue 800, right? Change this to blue 800, and that changes over here, right? Now this is exactly as same as changing the color style, right? You just change it very easily. But now, what if you want to change the color of blue 800 itself, right? So now we always have to go to the raw value. We're going to come down to colors, and I'm going to change it over here. And I'm going to sort of try to show you this better, right? Pay attention to this color and pay attention to this color, all right? Now, if you see over here, and let me quickly show you this before I change the color. This has a color of blue 800, of course, right? This has to have a color of blue 800. And here we're defining the use case for it, all right? And now, let me show you. If I come here to blue 800 and I change the color, right? Let me make it darker and pay attention to this part and this part, all right? As I increase it, you can see it's changing this and it's changing this, which means I am changing it in one place and it is affecting every other place automatically because it has done a spiderweb level mapping and not a one-to-one mapping, right? Maybe I want to change the color itself, right? Maybe add a little bit of teal, right? That's going to come and change that over here. It's changing for the blue 800, which is the first level token. And then it's changing for the second level token, which is basically the use case level, right? And that is the difference between variables and color styles. And that is just the beginning. Later on, we can add modes. We can add a dark mode variation. I'm sure you must have already seen this on Twitter and LinkedIn and in the Figma videos itself, right? If we had to make dark mode using color styles, we've had to repeat this 3 times. We've had to have light mode surface primary, light mode content primary, light mode border primary, dark mode surface primary, dark mode content primary, dark mode border primary. We would have to have 6 color styles, and that's just for one use case. And multiply that with secondary, with borders, with elevated, with inverted, with static. All of these are use cases. You're going to have probably, thousands of color styles. But with variables, it becomes so easy to organize and it becomes this beautifully connected database. And variables, of course, can be used for prototyping as well. That's a totally different thing altogether. But with colors, this is how we get to use it. Now, a couple of things that are missing is that, of course, we cannot make gradients as of now. We can make gradients in the future, right? And we can't have opacity tokens as well, right? So, for example, and let's say we have an element that has a transparent layer, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just create a color style. I'm going to call this surface transparent. All right. Let's say we do this. Now here because we don't have opacity tokens yet, I have to manually come over here, right? And I have to reduce the opacity manually over here, and that gets added over here. But ideally, and actually let me actually do it this way. Let's say we wanted the same surface primary with a lower opacity, right? I can't pick this blue 800 as a separate token and 25% as a separate token and combine them. I cannot do that today, right? So unfortunately, what I have to do is I will have to come here to the colors, find that blue, copy that, come back over here to our tokens, all right, and paste that over here, which means I'm sort of breaking that style, if you know what I mean, right? I can't say blue 800 25%. I actually have to say 0092B2 25%. Now, if we had opacity tokens, we could say blue 800 25%, and that feature is going to come a little bit later, towards the end of the year in Figma, or probably next year, I'm not really sure, right? And we can't do gradients as well, right? So that's missing. Now, gradients have to be done as color styles, which means you have to come over here in your normal color styles and create a gradient. But I'm sure by the end of the year, we can add color styles. We can create gradients here as well, right? So that is the main difference between color styles and color variables. Now, with that being said, let's look at some other open source design systems that we can learn from. I'm going to show you 3 examples. I'm going to show you the easiest, which is Uber, intermediate, which is Atlassian, and material design, which is more complex and advanced, right? I'm going to take you through all of that. So Uber's design system is called as Base. I'm sure all of you know about it. And if you come down here to design tokens, they've actually explained everything, right? And it's super simple and straightforward. And we're going to come down over here and you've got stroke, border, transition, shadow, gradient, typography, right? These are the various other types of color tokens, right? And I think if we come down here to the colors section and in the overview, we can see that they have this anatomy of their token. This is how Uber has set up their. They have their hex value and they give it a name called as blue 600, and then they give it a use case, right? Content, accent, right? Now blue 600 is an accent color, right? We called it primary content, secondary content, tertiary content, right? Here they're calling it accent content, all right? And here are all the colors, right? And what they've done is they have defined 3 things for colors: background, content, and border. Content can be text and icons. Border is basically your strokes and your dividers. And background is basically, like your surfaces, right? And they have a couple of things over here as well. I don't want to complicate all of that. This might be a little bit extra and might not be suitable for everybody's use case. So I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to come down here to the usage, and you can see here that the background is basically the surface. The content and the icon, the label and the icon is basically the content. They also have a border, all right? And they've just used 3 things, right? Background, content, border. 3 things. Very simple and straightforward. And here, as you can see, the same thing, the same way as we did with variables, background secondary is actually gray 50. Background secondary is not a hex code. Background secondary is a token, and gray 50 obviously has a hex code, right? So they have done that mapping over here, right? And they've got a couple more, edge cases and use cases and everything, some instructions and all of that. Of course, the fundamentals remain the same, right? They've got disabled colors. They've got a bunch of things, it's really interesting to check all these out, right? They've got like rules for a lot of stuff, and I'm not going to get into that. I want to quickly come here to the tokens, right? So what they have done is they have actually defined all their colors, right? And this is their entire color palette. But that does not mean they're using all these colors. Be it light mode, be it dark mode, all their colors are coming from here. They don't have a separate palette for dark mode and a separate palette for light mode. They have one palette, and be it a light mode version or a dark mode versions, all colors are being pulled from here, right? And here you can see primary A black, primary B white, accent blue 400, negative, right? So of course, this is the 3rd level, and red 400 is the 2nd level, right? And here, this is their core thing. So background, they have background primary, secondary, tertiary, and they have inverse primary and inverse secondary. By the way, inverse primary, inverse secondary is not dark mode. It is still light mode, right? Just like in Airbnb, the button had a black color, even though the app was in light mode. It is basically an inverse of the primary color, right? So do not mistake this to be dark mode. This is still light mode, all right? And then they have separate dark mode tokens, right? And I'm going to prove this to you, right? So let's look at green 700. Green 700 is 10462D. And if you go to light mode, okay, you still have green 700 10462D, right? We still have the same color palette in both light mode and dark mode. But then you pick the color and then you give it a use case, right? And that's the whole point of design tokens. And now you've got the dark mode versions, right? And here, dark mode inverse primary is now white in color, even though this is dark mode, right? So anyway, this is all about Uber's design system, right? It's very simple. And another interesting thing that I can show you, if I can quickly find that, here you can see that they have said design tokens follow a 3-tier model where design token stores an option or a decision, and each tier is referenced by one above, right? So here again, right? So here is the first level, which is basically black. Then they gave it a use case called as content primary, right? And then they're putting that into a component level, right? So secondary button, input value. This is the exact same thing that I showed you before, right? But here's the thing. Component specific tokens, all right, are primarily found in our code base and not so much in Figma. Their primary role is to represent the properties associated with the component. So which means we as designers, we just have to focus at the third level. So the first level, so level 0 is the hex code. Second level is the nickname. Third level is the use case, and the fourth level is the component. We just have to focus till the third level. If engineers want to go ahead and add that to their code bases, they are more than welcome to do that. A lot of companies don't do it, and that's totally okay, right? But at least the third level has to be there. All right, now here I'm in Atlassian's design system, which takes things to the next level. But again, the next level means more complicated, and we don't really have to follow what Atlassian is doing. If we follow what Uber is doing, it's more than enough. Atlassian, again, is a little bit too complicated for me, but maybe it works for their product because they have a lot of products and they have a very large design team, right? So here what they've done is their token starts with the name and the type of token, right? So they've called it a color, and here they don't call it content. They have separate for icons. They have separate tokens for icons. They have separate tokens for text layers, right? And then of course is the use case, right? And here again, right? This is how they read their icons. So they've got color, background, danger, bold, and hover, right? So they've got foundation, property, and a modifier, right? So here they make things a little bit more complicated, right? So here again, the raw value, the base token, which is basically the nickname, and the design token, which is basically combines all of that, right? Now they do have component level tokens as well, all right? Now we can come over here and let me see if I can find that. So as you can see, they also have opacity tokens, right? So they've called opacity loading, and they've defined, right, when something is loading, what should be the opacity of that layer, right? All right, now I'm going to click on here, which I think I saw was all tokens, all right? And here you can actually see they have pretty much all the tokens over here, right? The entire design token list. All. It's a massive library, right? And let's try to understand and look at these, right? So color text. So this is their default color text. Their default, text values are this color. And of course they have a dark mode variant as well. Now, if you see over here that each of the colors belong to their color palette. For example, over here, Lime 800 and Lime 300 are exactly in the same palette, and there's no such thing called as a light mode palette or a dark mode palette. All right. You've got color accent red. They've got things like border, which, it's a little bit complicated to explain. And yeah, they've got pressed states. They have links. They have icons. So they have they haven't combined text, links, and icons. For them, everything is separate. Uber combined everything, but here they are having separate tokens for text layers, separate tokens for icons, and separate tokens for links. All right. And finally, we have material design. All right. Now here, maybe I'm going to show you a better one. So here they have md.sys, sys, which is basically system, .color, .on secondary, right? This is just the third level token, right? So MD stands for material design. So that's an additional, layer of text. Then the token type. Is it a reference token? Is it a system token or a component token, right? Now that is really confusing. And honestly, we don't have to go into that depths, and material design for some reason loves to complicate everything, but it's nice to see how complicated things can get. All right. And over here, right? So this is the value, this is the hex code, and this is the component, right? So the first level is material design, referencing, it's a reference token, right? The first level is called the reference level and is basically calling secondary container 90, right? They're calling this secondary container 90. They are calling it that, all right? Then they have system tokens, which is the next level, which is a color token. And they are saying that secondary container 90, right? That's the nickname, is going to be used as secondary container. Now, it's weird that this information is being repeated, the same layer of text, right? Is being repeated, and that's why it's getting complicated. And finally, at the component level, so material design, this token is a component token, which is basically the fourth level. It's for the floating action button, all right? It's a secondary level. It's a secondary color. It's not a primary color. It's a secondary color. And it's for the container. Now, we called it surface, we called it background, but they're calling it container. And then finally, they're saying color, right? So this token is honestly quite long and too confusing, and it doesn't really have to be, right? If Uber was doing this, this would probably be secondary background. That's it, right? It would just be secondary background and the color would be defined, right? But here it's md.comp.fab.secondary.container.color, right? It doesn't have to be really that complex. All right. They have for, textiles as well. We're not going to look into all of that, right? Let's see if we can find anything else interesting. So here again, they have the dark mode color again. So here, right? The main token, the use case is the background color, right? And in light mode, they're using neutral 99. And in dark mode, they're using neutral 10, right? But the third level token stays the same, right? So when designers are creating, they will create this screen. And when they add the background color, they're going to say material design system color background, right? And in the backend, designers would have defined that every background color is going to be neutral 99 in light mode and neutral 10 in dark mode. So when they are coming over here, they're going to apply the third level token and not the second level token, not the first level raw hex code, right? And here you have how to use tokens. You can actually check out their, plugin if you want and play around with it. I've tried it out. I found it very complex and I found it a little bit too confusing. So I didn't really, get into all of that, but that's about it. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. So then take care and bye-bye.